You know, for a weekend that I didn't think games would be as close at points, it was the series that you weren't expecting to be good that were pretty entertaining. And the ones that you thought that weren't going to be blowouts that absolutely were. So let's take a look back at the week that was, some of the headlines around the LCS, including the LEC this week, because there's one thing that Sheep said that I just got to talk about at some point. I've got 5 main topics here. If you got anything else, be sure to put it down in the comments and we'll chat about it as the video comes out. Starting at number 1, we're going to do a little bit of Jinting here, which I can't stand the Jhin picks that have been happening. I know the LEC is arguably worse with their Lucian pick, which apparently hasn't won in God knows how long. But for the LCS, it was picked again earlier today. Who was it? No, sorry, it was yesterday. Dignitas, FBI picked it. And in a series where I wasn't expecting Dig to give us any hope, they did in game 1. And then game 2, like, it kind of slips away from them. But in game 3, it's like, okay, well, they've shown enough signs for us to be able to have some faith in them here that they might actually be able to pull off this upset. Maybe the season's not lost for Dignitas. And I would argue it probably isn't, given how their general form has been this week, or at least the level up between 1 and 2. But then they pick Jhin. And it's not just the Jhin pick, but it's rounding it out 4-5 with a Maokai and a Cassante. And it's like, you don't have the damage. And then on top of that, you build Youmuu's first item. Like, I just cannot stand it as an ADC main. Okay, it just annoys the crap out of me. I get movement speed is incredibly important in this game. And obviously, being able to move and keep yourself alive is very important. But then you look at what Sven did earlier today, like the one positive game that I've seen out of a Jhin so far in the LCS. He goes Hex Optic, he goes IE. And he actually does damage and is killing people. Like, he's actually hurting versus this mosquito Jhin build that we've been seeing from everybody else as they continue to play it. Masu did it earlier in the year as well. It's like, why? I hate this Jhin pick. Like, this is the new Kalista from like a year ago, give or take, where it's like, you guys just don't ever seem to play it right in terms of the comp, nor the item selection or beyond. I don't get it. I need to know somebody's philosophy that is built. FBI specifically, I would love to know his idea on how this is going to work and why you are the exception to the rest. Like, what is your philosophy that is so much different than everybody else's that you think that it's going to work doing the same thing that didn't work? I get Sven's. He said, hey, I'm going to build damage. And he did damage and they won. Great. But I can't stand this Jhin pick. Like, I really can't. Dig gave me just like a little bit of hope, and then the second that happened, it just washed away. Ugh, couldn't, no. I want to go positive with my second one, though, and that is, I think the Zinie signs of him being a very promising player are starting to show up already. Yes, Shopify got their ass beat by Team Liquid, and while it was a 2-0 still, game 2 was very ugly from TL's part. Shopify played quite well to get them into it. I think Zinie, even in the game 1 loss and in the game 2 loss, looked pretty good, especially in lane. It felt like Shopify's problems were a little bit more on the team chemistry point of view, which actually I'll use Cubby's tweet for this one because I honestly disagree with it to a certain extent. I think when you pick up a player like Zinie, yes, did it destroy chemistry that existed with the old roster? Sure, but there was a ceiling that clearly existed, in my opinion. And Zinie is a longer-term bet that he will elevate it. But I think the thing that we all knew with Shopify prior to this was that there were going to be bigger issues than just the one player. We all knew that. And I think there was an intent to blow something up. But the question was, would the other pieces elevate, assuming that this one got swapped out? And Zinie's getting leads early on in these games. Like, I'll put up the games of LoL real quick down below here, but he's consistently ahead at 15 minutes. Granted, we're only 2 weeks in, so obviously these stats are a little bit skewed from their week 1 stomp of Dignitas, obviously, but he didn't lose against Quid bad enough to the point where those numbers swapped to negative. So I'd say that's good. And again, he was getting leads against Quid. I'm just saying in theory. I think this Zinie thing is genuinely going to work out. Like, I think we're seeing enough signs that that's fine. And now the other people on his team, maybe not. But I think at least through 2 weeks so far, we're starting to see some growth in terms of the Zinie contracts duo. You could look at other lanes as reasons as to why I don't think the Shopify project might work out long term, because there's been some pretty serious regression in other areas. Granted, against good teams, against TL, but still, I can't say that this is going to fully work out. But I think they did find their star in Zinie that you can build around for the future so far. Speaking of stars, man, I mean, we got to talk about Griffin. I mean, I know I keep harping on him anytime he plays well, but it's been a bit since he's played well. And he popped off today. He made Kryra look like Kryra has never played the game before. And you could argue, Kryra entered it. I know APA made that case on the broadcast and the post-game interview, but I would say we've been a little bit hard on Griffin, understandably, for some of his int plays, which he by all means is guilty of. But when you look at the opponents that they were playing prior to that, it was like, okay, you're facing top of the table teams. And that tends to happen when you play really good teams with really good junglers. I mean, they played TL, they played C9, they played Lyon. Yeah, like I'm sorry, for FlyQuest, I'm fine with you losing to those people as long as you're developing long term, which it seems like Griffin, at least against like the lesser opponents in the league, is now starting to take care of business. And that's what we saw at the beginning of lock-in as well. So I'm really happy with how this whole Griffin thing is going. He's aggressive, and I like seeing that out of the youth of this league. There was actually something that Azale brought out like really early on in the cast that I think was like a good call out, but he kind of like diverted the point elsewhere because I think they just ran out of time. But he said America's problem, or at least North America's problem, has never necessarily been junglers in terms of the people that we bring up. It's always been more the solo laners. Like the solo laners that we bring up just can never stand the test to some of the other imports. Griffin was always one that was like, I was shocked why he wasn't in the LCS a little bit sooner and given that spot, given how well our like history in North America has been of any role taking a chance. It's ADC and it's jungle. Those are the two that have worked out. So it surprised me that it took this long, but I'm happy that we're now finally here. The Griffin experiment seems to be going well, and FlyQuest seems to have a roster that is going to continue to grow as time goes on. I mean, today, Gakko's had a pretty good series, which we've been missing from him, like that pop-off moment where he comes in and slams his foot down a little bit. Same thing with Cryogen. Cryogen, a lot of people were saying, was by far the weakest role weakest player as of lock-in on this team, and I think that's an entirely fair criticism to be levied. But today, he played pretty damn well against the team that's around even with them in the standings. Like, this is an important matchup for FlyQuest because, again, middle of the table, you got to be able to put these teams down to eventually try and punch up to the big three. There's a clear delineation right now between TL, C9, Lyon, and everybody else. You're not necessarily going to get those wins now, but it doesn't matter if you lose to them in spring. It doesn't matter if you lose to them in early parts of summer. You will be able to hopefully win when it matters, and that will erase the history of everything else prior to it. I mean, it won't erase it, but we don't talk about 100 Thieves' really bad dip in the middle of the year last year as much as we talk about them beating C9 and knocking them out of contention. So, yeah, as long as you finish strong, that's fine. And the squad seems to be developing perfectly fine. Also, an important shout out, and I'll use this kind of as a mini segue. Griffin mentioned that apparently they're going to be streaming their Esports World Cup qualifying series or like qualifier series that starts on, I believe, Tuesday of this week. So if you're not familiar, the way we're distributing teams to Esports World Cup this year is that the winner of Spring Split goes, and then there's an online tournament that will also run concurrently with the LCS over the next 2.5 weeks to qualify the second team. Now, I'm assuming if the team that wins it goes on to win the split, then it would just go to the second place of this qualifier because it's a double elimination tournament that starts with all 8 teams in the upper bracket, and then best of 3s all the way through, and a best of 5 final. So whoever loses the final, you just got to pray that the person that wins the final goes on to win the entire split. But it's all online. It's happening during the week, obviously not during LCS time, but there's been no details of an official broadcast at all. However, Griffin has said that apparently the individual player streams will be the way that we can all consume this. So this will be weekday League of Legends content for us here in North America. Cool. That's a yay. Speaking of scheduling, we'll go over to Europe here for the 4th point because I got a bone to pick with LEC Wooloo on this one. I knew these complaints would come in immediately on the scheduling of the LEC, which, yes, if you look at the table, it looks a little bit funky in terms of the results right now based on who's played more games, who's played less. The reason for that, again, is because when you get to these road trips, in order to make the road trips make the most amount of sense, both financially and beyond, you need to have the teams that are playing there playing as many games as you can in front of the crowd. So all 4 teams that are going will play 3 series throughout the weekend. They will all play each other. So you have to make sure that those teams are not playing games immediately, so they're not just sitting there for weeks on end, like 3-4 weeks, without having a single game to play. So the result of that is the schedule being a little bit weird, which I get for like LEC European fans. That's going to feel really odd because they don't have sports that have like bye weeks in the same way that like we do in the NFL here in North America, where like you can have these schedule discrepancies that eventually work themselves out. And again, I think the more important thing here is road shows. Like, we complain all the time about like, oh, we need what's best for the esport. What's best for the esport is, one, as much consistency as we can, but two, and more importantly, getting in front of fans. And these road trips are exactly the answer to that. So if this is a sacrifice that you have to make in order to make sure that you are getting out on the road more and make those road trips the most valuable that you can be for fans, yeah, that's worth doing. I don't care about anybody's opinion or thoughts on how much it might suck beyond that. We are catering towards the in-person audience, because the online audience, they just don't have as much relevancy. I mean, look at the viewership right now. It is down across every region as we're in the middle of the regular season. So no, I'm not worried about catering to that online audience. I care about catering to the 4,000 to 5,000 people that you can get to show up to an arena in France or in Spain. Simple as that. So I don't get this complaint from Sheep. I really don't. And my final point is that I think we need to start sounding the alarm bells just a little bit for Lyon and Cloud9. Now, the standings as they are currently for the LCS has Team Liquid on top, which, yes, even Team Liquid has looked a little bit shaky. They still do have a loss. Nobody's perfect in terms of game record. Everybody's lost at least one. But I think TL has looked the cleanest in terms of their opponents, but obviously they played easier teams. C9 and Lyon did play each other. It was a little bit messy at points. C9's able to win it out. But it's more importantly the teams that they played this week that C9 looked very shaky against Sentinels, and then Lyon looked very shaky against Dignitas. I don't think that's a flawed statement to sit here and say that TL looks like the best. And for C9 and Lyon, you are seeing signs of problems that could potentially arise later. Now, there's one of two ways that this could go, because we saw this with Lyon back in lock-in, where they did struggle during the regular season. But you know what happened? They were able to fix those problems and turn it on in the postseason. But what you could also see is the opposite, is where these problems then get exacerbated whenever the pressure gets on most. And the later we go into the year, the more pressure there is. So I'm just raising the flags now that at least for the moment, it looks like C9 and Lyon are currently on a little bit of watch to say, okay, can these problems that they're clearly seeing for C9, it seems to be their early game now, rather than their ability to come back later and team fight, which seems to be fine. I think game one versus Sentinels for them, Sentinels should have won. They were in the drive, not should have. I hate whenever people do that. The wording on that just annoys me. Sentinels were in a position to capitalize and win that game and threw it away, in my opinion, which obviously C9 needs to be able to catch the throw and be able to make plays to be able to do that. So I'm not taking anything away from C9 at all, but it's just Sentinels, like, oh, that game one frustrated me. But either way, yeah, C9's losing early games, but then winning later, which, I mean, could work. Sure, I'm not going to say that it can't, but it could eventually cause some problems of like, okay, how far behind do you potentially get later in the year? And then that becomes a bigger issue against a team like TL or Lyon and beyond. For Lyon, it's just some macro mistakes, like people getting caught out of position that they really shouldn't. Dokla, I'm trying to shield you from as much as I can, because I know the community criticism is harsh, to say the least. I don't think it's... I think it's fair to a certain extent, but I think people dogpile way too much and just simply are scapegoating him and wanting him dropped at the moment, which I don't think is the right answer. I think he deserves time. There's the claim that he's a bright lights merchant, so he's going to show up when it matters most. And you know what? So long as he does, that earns my respect. And I think people just need to get off their high horse a little bit. But there's no denying that he's making some bad plays right now. Will that turn around? Could. Very much could. But Inspired's also had some dud games as well. So it's not like everybody, or even like the great players on this roster, are entirely innocent either. I'm just saying some early warning signs. But then again, we will still see TL versus C9 and Lyon in the last 2 weeks of the regular season, which I think will be way more of a test to determine where they're at. Anyways, that's going to be it for me. I'll be back for the Harbor and the Pit on Wednesday and Friday. I will keep you all posted on Twitter, of all places, when we find out more information on the EWC stuff. I understand most people might not watch it. I just do. I'm going to see what's going on, and hopefully the players stream and make content out of it, because that would be great weekday stuff. If not, I will not be live next weekend for the co-stream, because I'll be at one of Emily's family members' weddings. So I will be out of town, which the schedule next weekend looks a little rough, other than the DSG versus Sen series. So we'll see. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Be sure to drop a like on the video, hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll catch you around. Bye-bye.